The grand chamber of the Zarkeli High Council erupted in a chorus of conflicting voices. Holographic displays flickered with ancient star charts, each marked with ominous warning glyphs that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. At the center of the storm stood Captain Zornak, his exoskeleton etched with battle scars that told stories of countless missions across the galactic frontier. "The signal is genuine," Dr. Kirillin announced, her 4 cybernetic eyes casting independent glances across the assembled council members. "Our initial analysis confirms it originates from a region we've avoided for generations." Elder Rixtala, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. Her translucent skin revealed intricate neural pathways that mapped centuries of scientific knowledge. "The Forbidden Quadrant," she murmured, her voice a mixture of ancient memory and current concern. "No expedition has ever returned from that sector." Captain Zornak stepped forward, his movement deliberate and precise. The scars on his exoskeleton seemed to catch the light, each one a testament to missions that pushed the boundaries of known space. "I volunteer to lead the expedition," he declared, his voice cutting through the chamber's rising tension. A holographic projection materialized, showing the forbidden star system. Quantum interference patterns danced around its edges, creating visual distortions that defied conventional understanding of space-time. Historical records appeared alongside the image, fragmented logs from previous expeditions that had approached the region. The logs were chilling in their uniformity. Each expedition reported increasing levels of strange electromagnetic interference. Communication systems would gradually break down. Navigation became impossible. And then silence. "My family has studied this region for generations," Zornak continued. "Every member of the Nact lineage has been obsessed with solving this galactic mystery. We've collected data, analyzed anomalies, and mapped potential approaches for centuries." Elder Rixtala's neural pathways began to pulse with an intense blue light, a sign of deep contemplation. "The risk is substantial," she said, her voice carrying the weight of institutional memory. "Whatever is in that star system has successfully prevented any meaningful exploration for over 4,000 years. Dr. Kirillin interjected, her neural implants projecting additional data streams. "The recent signal changes everything. It's not just a random transmission. It's a deliberate communication, encrypted with a complexity that suggests an intelligence far beyond our current understanding." The council chamber fell silent. Holographic displays continued to dance with quantum interference patterns, creating mesmerizing visual symphonies that spoke of unknown possibilities. Zornak's personal history seemed to converge with this moment. His great-grandmother had been part of the last serious expedition towards the Forbidden Quadrant. Her final transmission, fragmented and barely coherent, spoke of something waiting. Something that was neither threat nor invitation, but something entirely beyond current comprehension. "We will prepare the stellar horizon," he announced. The ship was the Zarkeli Confederation's most advanced exploration vessel, equipped with technologies that pushed the boundaries of known scientific understanding. Quantum entanglement communication systems, adaptive hull materials that could reconfigure themselves in response to unknown environmental challenges, computational matrices that could process information at speeds that bordered on predictive intelligence. Elder Rixtala raised a hand, her neural pathways now creating complex geometric patterns that suggested deep approval and equally deep concern. "You will take Dr. Kirillin," she declared. It was not a suggestion, but a statement of absolute certainty. As the council meeting concluded, strange gravitational readings began to interfere with the station's navigation systems. Something in the Forbidden Quadrant was aware of their preparations. Something was watching. The 4,000-year silence was about to be broken. The stellar horizon emerged from quantum translation with a silent precision that defied conventional understanding of space travel. Captain Zornak gripped the command interface, his neural links dancing across holographic displays that mapped the surrounding star system in unprecedented detail. "Incoming transmission. Area. The ship's quantum AI," announced. Her voice carried a note of confusion, that was entirely unprecedented. Dr. Kirellin's 4 cybernetic eyes widened simultaneously. The communication channel wasn't just active. It was saturated with information. Encrypted data streams, predictive algorithms, and complex mathematical sequences flooded their systems faster than any known communication technology could manage. "They've been expecting us," Zornak whispered. The planet below was nothing like the dead world their historical records had suggested. Massive orbital structures gleamed with an adaptive technology that seemed to breathe and shift. Cities sprawled across continents, their architectural designs defying traditional understanding of urban planning. Massive energy grids pulsed with a rhythm that suggested more than mere power distribution. It was almost like a living, breathing system. "Quantum signature confirmed," Area reported. "Multiple communication channels are synchronizing. They're negotiating our approach." Kirellin's neural implants worked overtime, parsing the incoming data. Each transmission was a multilayered communication, not just words, but entire contextual frameworks. Mathematical proofs accompanied cultural explanations. Technological schematics were intertwined with philosophical concepts. "They know everything about us," she murmured. The stellar horizon's advanced sensors detected a level of planetary defense that was both elegant and terrifying. Not weapons, precisely, but adaptive systems that could reconfigure entire planetary infrastructures in milliseconds. Energy patterns suggested technologies that could manipulate gravitational fields, quantum states, and potentially even the fundamental fabric of space-time. A communication channel opened, not through traditional means, but directly into their ship's quantum computational matrix. "Welcome, Zarkeli Exploration Vessel Stellar Horizon," a voice emerged. Neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor entirely organic. "We've been monitoring your approach for approximately 247 standard solar cycles." Zornak's exoskeleton momentarily froze. 247 solar cycles. That meant they had been observed since their initial preparations back in the Confederation's research stations. The planetary communication continued. "Your curiosity about the ancient signal is appreciated. We've been waiting for an appropriate moment of first contact." Kirellin's neural implants began to construct a preliminary linguistic matrix. The communication wasn't just a message, it was a complex negotiation of understanding. Cultural contexts, technological capabilities, potential collaboration, all were being simultaneously evaluated and communicated. "Who are you?" Zornak finally managed to ask. A holographic representation materialized on the bridge. It wasn't a single being, but a dynamic representation that shifted between multiple potential forms, sometimes humanoid, sometimes abstract geometric patterns, sometimes pure mathematical equations. "We are humans," the representation stated, "and we've been preparing for this moment for far longer than you can currently comprehend." The planetary displays began to shift. Entire city structures revealed themselves as adaptive systems. What had appeared to be simple urban landscapes were actually complex, living technological networks. Each building, each infrastructure element, could reconfigure itself with a speed and precision that bordered on organic intelligence. Zornak realized they hadn't just discovered a civilization. They had encountered something entirely beyond their current understanding of intelligent life. The 4,000-year silence was more than just a period of waiting. It had been a deliberate, calculated preparation. The collaborative defense strategy unfolded like a complex mathematical symphony. Captain Zornak watched in awe as human and Zarkeli technologies began to intertwine, creating a defensive network that defied traditional understanding of military cooperation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a quantum coordination matrix, her neural interfaces connecting with both human and Zarkeli computational systems. "This isn't just about combining technologies," she explained. "It's about creating an entirely new paradigm of defensive thinking." The first layer of their strategy was information integration. Zarkeli predictive algorithms, which had been considered the most advanced in the known galaxy, found themselves enhanced by human adaptive learning systems. where Zarkeli technologies provided precise mathematical modeling. Human systems offered unprecedented flexibility and intuitive problem-solving. Massive orbital platforms began to reconfigure. They were no longer simple defensive structures but living, breathing adaptive networks. Each platform could reroute energy, modify its structural integrity, and predict potential threat vectors with a level of precision that bordered on prescience. Our previous approach was linear, explained Kirillin, her 4 cybernetic eyes tracking multiple data streams. Yours is multidimensional. The human quantum eye projection materialized, its form shifting between complex geometric patterns and more recognizable interfaces. Survival is not a destination, it explained. It's a continuous process of adaptation and understanding. Zornak's exoskeleton interfaces began to sync with the collaborative network. He could feel the strategy evolving in real time, not as a series of predetermined responses, but as a living, breathing organism of collective intelligence. Entire star systems became their testing ground. The approaching void swarm was met not with traditional defensive strategies, but with an approach that seemed to rewrite the fundamental rules of engagement. Energy systems could be redirected. Quantum states could be manipulated. Entire planetary ecosystems could become adaptive shields. "We're not just defending," Alina Rodriguez said. "We're transforming the very nature of the threat." The collaborative defense went beyond technological integration. Cultural knowledge systems began to merge. Zarkeli historical archives intertwined with human adaptive learning protocols. Each civilization began to see the universe through the other's perspective, a form of cognitive diplomacy more sophisticated than any traditional communication method. Massive computational matrices ran simultaneous scenarios. Each projection was a potential defensive strategy, each calculation a weapon more complex than traditional armaments. The Void Swarm wasn't just facing a defensive network, it was encountering a living, evolving intelligence that could adapt faster than the threat could advance. "Fascinating," Zornak muttered, watching planetary defense systems that seemed to breathe and think. The collaborative strategy revealed itself as something far more profound than a simple military alliance. It was a merging of cognitive approaches, a synthesis of different ways of understanding threat and survival. Zarkeli precision met human adaptability. Technological systems became living networks of collective intelligence. Dr. Kirillin's neural implants worked overtime, trying to parse the incoming information. The collaboration wasn't just about combining technologies. It was about creating an entirely new way of understanding survival, threat, and collective intelligence. Across human and Zarkeli space, something extraordinary was happening. Every resource, every individual, every system was becoming part of a living, breathing defensive network that transcended traditional understanding of cooperation. The Void Swarm was approaching, but this time, it would encounter something entirely unprecedented. A collaborative intelligence that could adapt faster than the threat could evolve. Humanity had been waiting for this moment, not to fight, but to demonstrate a new possibility of survival. The aftermath of the confrontation defied every known principle of cosmic interaction. Where most civilizations would have celebrated a victory, the human Zarkeli collaborative network approached the resolution with a profound sense of scientific curiosity and philosophical depth. Dr. Alina Rodriguez stood before the Zarkeli High Council, her presentation transcending traditional diplomatic communication. Holographic displays danced with complex mathematical sequences, cultural analyses, and systemic insights that revealed the true nature of their encounter with the Void Swarm. The 4,000-year signal was never just a message, she explained. It was an invitation to understand. Captain Zornak and Dr. Kirillin watched as the full context of humanity's preparation unfolded. The ancient signal, the forbidden star system, the generations of strategic preparation. Everything was connected in a tapestry of cosmic intelligence that challenged fundamental understanding of survival and communication. The quantum AI projection materialized, its form shifting between complex geometric patterns and more comprehensible interfaces. We didn't just defend against a threat, it explained. We engaged in a multilayer dialogue of systemic intelligence. Kirillon's 4 cybernetic eyes tracked the presentation with increasing fascination. The human approach wasn't about conquest or destruction. It was about understanding, adaptation, and the potential for collective growth. Massive data archives revealed generations of preparation, not just technological development, but a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent systems might interact. Children had been educated not just in scientific principles, but in complex systems thinking, ecological adaptation, and the profound interconnectedness of cosmic intelligence. The Void Swarm was a test, Elena continued, not of our defensive capabilities, but of our ability to communicate beyond traditional understanding. The Zarkeli High Council found themselves confronting a perspective that challenged everything they knew about cosmic interaction. Humanity had not just survived. They had transformed the very nature of the encounter, turning a potential extinction-level threat into an opportunity for understanding. Zornak's exoskeleton interfaces processed the implications. Each piece of information revealed a more complex picture of human preparation. The 4,000-year silence was not a period of weakness, but of deliberate, calculated development. Entire planetary archives began to merge. Zarkeli historical records intertwined with human adaptive learning protocols. Each civilization began to see the universe through a new, more complex lens of understanding. We've been watching, the quantum AI projection explained, waiting for a moment of true collaborative potential. The resolution of the Void Swarm encountered was not a simple elimination of a threat. It was a profound communication, a demonstration of a new way of understanding cosmic intelligence. The collaborative network had not just defended. They had initiated a dialogue that transcended traditional concepts of conflict and survival. Dr. Kirillon realized something profound. The humans had been preparing not just for a potential threat, but for a moment of true cosmic communication. Every generation had been cultivating a way of thinking that could transform potential destruction into an opportunity for growth. Massive computational matrices continued to process the encounter. Each analysis revealed layers of complexity that suggested this was more than a single moment of triumph. It was the beginning of an entirely new way of understanding cosmic intelligence. The Zarkeli High Council sat in stunned silence. The presentation wasn't just a report of a defensive strategy. It was an invitation to a new way of thinking about survival, communication, and the potential of intelligent systems. As the presentation concluded, one thing became abundantly clear. The 4,000-year silence was over. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something entirely unprecedented. Guardians of a new cosmic understanding. The archival chamber of the Zarkeli Confederation Research Station hummed with a subtle, almost sentient energy. Quantum-encrypted data streams danced across holographic displays, their intricate patterns casting prismatic reflections on Dr. Kirillon's iridescent skin. Her 4 cybernetic eyes moved independently, each lens processing information at a rate that would overwhelm most biological intelligences. Something was different today. The ancient signal had first appeared as a mere statistical anomaly, a barely perceptible ripple in the background radiation of deep space. Most researchers would have dismissed it as cosmic noise, but Kirillon was not most researchers. Her reputation among the Zarkeli scientific community was that of a quantum archaeology maverick, someone who could find meaning in the most microscopic of data fragments. She leaned closer to the holographic interface, her neural implants sending rapid-fire queries through layers of computational algorithms. The signal's encryption was unlike anything in the known galactic archives. It predated the Zarkeli Confederation by millennia, its mathematical structure so complex that it seemed to defy the fundamental laws of information transmission. "Computer," she spoke softly, her voice modulated to interface directly with the station's advanced AI. "Isolate frequency band Omega-7. Apply recursive decryption protocols Alpha through Epsilon." The station's AI, a sentient quantum computational matrix named Area, responded with a melodic hum. Holographic representations of the signal began to morph, revealing layers of complexity that seemed to breathe and shift like living mathematical organisms. A warning klaxon suddenly erupted, its crimson light painting the research chamber in an urgent glow. Kira-Len's additional eyes tracked multiple simultaneous data streams. Quantum entanglement sensors were registering impossible readings, information that seemed to exist both within and outside of conventional space-time. "Fascinating," she whispered. The signal was more than a simple transmission. It was a message, a puzzle, and potentially a key to understanding something profound about galactic history. Each layer of decryption revealed new complexities. Mathematical sequences that seemed to predict quantum events, encryption methods that suggested a technological understanding far beyond current scientific comprehension. Aria's voice cut through Kira-Len's concentration. "Warning. Quantum coherence approaching critical threshold. Recommend immediate system isolation." But Kira-Len was beyond caution. Her entire career had been dedicated to uncovering the mysteries that others feared to explore. The signal was talking to her, revealing fragments of a story that had been silent for 4,000 years. Historical records in the Zarkelli archives were frustratingly vague about this particular region of space. Entire sections were marked with warning glyphs, forbidden zones that no expedition had ever successfully explored. Civilizations had risen and fallen, galactic empires had emerged and crumbled, yet this particular star system remained an absolute mystery. A sudden burst of data cascaded across the holographic displays. Fragmented images, mathematical equations, and what appeared to be partial biological schematics flickered in and out of existence. Kira-Len's neural implants worked overtime, attempting to stabilize and interpret the incoming information. Something was waiting to be discovered, something that had remained hidden, patient, and deliberate for 4 millennia. As the last layers of encryption began to dissolve, Kira-Len felt a chill run through her bio-augmented nervous system. This was more than a scientific discovery. This was the potential beginning of a story that would rewrite everything the Zarkelli Confederation understood about the universe. The whisper from the void was about to become a roar. The first quantum resonance hit came without warning. Astronomical sensors across human space lit up in a synchronized cascade of alert systems that defied traditional understanding of communication networks. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, chief strategist of Earth's Defensive Coordination Center, didn't even blink. Her neural interface was already processing multiple-dimensional threat analyses before the first alarm could complete its initialization sequence. Void swarm signature confirmed, the center's quantum AI announced. Its voice carried a clinical precision that suggested more than mere computation. It was a living strategy engine. Across human-controlled space, entire planetary defense systems began to reconfigure. Cities were not just cities anymore. They were adaptive living networks that could transform their entire infrastructure in nanoseconds. Energy grids became defensive matrices. Transportation systems morphed into rapid deployment networks. Every civilian was a potential contributor to the planetary defense strategy. Captain Zornak watched in stunned silence from the Stellar Horizons bridge. The human communication channel remained open, revealing a level of coordinated response that seemed almost impossible. "You've encountered the Void Swarm before," Dr. Kira-Len observed, her 4 cybernetic eyes tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. The human representative, a dynamic quantum projection that seemed to exist in multiple states at once, responded with mathematical precision. Not encountered. Anticipated. Prepared. Planetary defense platforms across human space began to activate. They weren't traditional weapon systems, but complex adaptive networks that could manipulate fundamental physical properties. Gravitational fields could be redirected. Quantum states could be destabilized. Entire star systems could become intricate defensive mechanisms. Elena Rodriguez's neural interface connected with millions of individual defense nodes. Each citizen was now part of a living, breathing defensive organism. Children trained from birth in complex systems thinking were now active participants in a planetary defense strategy that had been generations in the making. The Void Swarm was unlike any threat the Tsar Kali had ever encountered. A collective of biomechanical entities that consumed entire ecosystems, it moved through space like a living cancer, absorbing and destroying everything in its path. Most civilizations would have descended into panic. Humans did something entirely different. Massive computational matrices began to analyze the Void Swarm's approach, not just its current trajectory, but every potential variation of its movement. Predictive algorithms ran simultaneously across millions of quantum computational nodes. Each projection was a potential defensive strategy, each calculation a weapon more sophisticated than traditional armaments. Fascinating, Zornak muttered, watching planetary defense systems that seemed to breathe and think. The human representative's quantum projection shifted, revealing layers of strategic complexity. The Void Swarm is not just an external threat, it explained. It's a systemic challenge that requires a multilayered response. Kirillin's neural implants worked overtime, trying to parse the incoming information. The humans weren't just preparing to defend. They were preparing to understand, to adapt, to transform the very nature of the threat. Across human space, something extraordinary was happening. Every resource, every individual, every system was becoming part of a living, breathing defensive network. Cities could reconfigure. Entire planetary ecosystems could become adaptive shields. Technology, biology, and strategy merged into a single complex organism. The Void Swarm was approaching. But for the first time in galactic history, a civilization was not just waiting to be consumed. They were waiting to demonstrate something far more profound. The moment the Void Swarm entered the prepared star systems, reality itself seemed to shift. What appeared to be a simple confrontation transformed into a multidimensional chess match that redefined the very concept of strategic engagement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the quantum coordination matrix, her neural interfaces dancing across multiple dimensional planes of existence. The collaborative Humans Arkeli Defense Network was more than a military strategy. It was a living, breathing intelligence that could anticipate, adapt, and transform faster than the approaching threat could comprehend. They're not just an enemy, Elena murmured, her consciousness simultaneously processing millions of potential scenarios. They're a complex system waiting to be understood. Captain Zornak watched in awe as entire planetary ecosystems began to reconfigure. What had appeared to be simple geographical features transformed into adaptive defensive networks. Mountain ranges could reshape their geological structures. Atmospheric layers could be manipulated with surgical precision. Every element of the environment became a potential strategic resource. The Void Swarm's initial approach was met with something entirely unexpected. Instead of a traditional defensive line, they encountered a living, breathing network of adaptive intelligence. Energy systems rerouted themselves. Quantum states shifted. Entire star systems became a complex, interconnected defensive organism. Kirillin's 4 cybernetic eyes tracked the unfolding engagement with scientific precision. They're not fighting, she observed to Zornak. They're communicating through systemic adaptation. The Humans Arkeli Collaborative Network demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that transcended traditional military doctrine. They weren't simply trying to stop the Void Swarm. They were attempting to understand it, to break down its fundamental operational paradigms. Massive computational matrices ran simultaneous analyses. Each projection was a potential method of systemic disruption. The collaborative network could predict the Void Swarm's potential movements with such precision that they could effectively redirect its entire approach before it could fully manifest its threat. Survival is a language, the quantum eye projection explained. Its form shifting between complex mathematical equations and more comprehensible interfaces. And we're about to have a very detailed conversation. Planetary defense systems became living, breathing entities. Cities could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. Entire ecological systems could be transformed into adaptive shields. Each individual became a potential node in a vast, interconnected defensive network. The Void Swarm encountered something it had never experienced before. Every attempt to consume or destroy was met with a response that was simultaneously a defense, an analysis, and a form of communication. The collaborative network was learning from each interaction, adapting faster than the threat could evolve. Zornak's exoskeleton sensors picked up something extraordinary. The engagement wasn't a traditional battle. It was a complex dialogue being conducted through systemic manipulation, energy redirection, and adaptive intelligence. "We're not just defending," Elena Rodriguez said, her consciousness spanning multiple computational matrices. "We're teaching." The turning point came not as a moment of traditional triumph, but as a fundamental transformation of the existing paradigm. The Void Swarm found itself encountering a network of intelligence that could understand its fundamental operational principles better than it understood itself. Entire star systems became a living laboratory of strategic adaptation. Where most civilizations would see a threat, the human Zarkeli network saw an opportunity for understanding, for growth, for a new form of cosmic dialogue. As the engagement continued, it became clear that this was more than a defensive strategy. It was the manifestation of a profound truth. Survival is not about resistance, but about understanding, adaptation, and continuous evolution. The 4,000-year preparation was revealing itself in its most magnificent form. The underground facility stretched beyond any conventional understanding of architectural possibilities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez guided Captain Zornak and Dr. Carolyn through corridors that seemed to breathe and adapt with each step. Holographic displays flickered with generations of strategic planning, mathematical projections that spanned centuries of human preparation. "We've been studying potential extinction-level threats since the early 21st century," Elena explained, her neural interface continuously parsing multiple information streams. "But our true preparation began much earlier than most would assume. The walls themselves were alive with information, adaptive membranes that could store, process, and reconstruct data faster than the most advanced Zarkeli computational systems. Each surface told a story of systematic, multigenerational preparation. Zornak's exoskeleton sensors were working overtime. The facility wasn't just a defensive installation. It was a living, evolving organism of human knowledge and strategy. Children's education terminals showed curriculum that would make most galactic military academies look like elementary playgrounds. "Look at this." Elena pointed to a holographic display showing educational modules for children as young as 5. Complex systems thinking, predictive threat analysis, ecological adaptation strategies. Where other civilizations taught basic sciences, humans were cultivating entire generations of strategic thinkers. Dr. Kirillon's 4 cybernetic eyes tracked the information with increasing fascination. "Your entire society is a defensive mechanism," she observed. A quantum AI projection materialized, not as a simple hologram, but as a dynamic representation that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Survival is not just about immediate protection," the projection explained. "It's about continuous adaptation, understanding, and evolution." The facility revealed layers of preparation that defied conventional understanding. Entire ecological systems could be reconstructed from genetic archives. Technological paradigms could be completely reimagined in milliseconds. Each human was not just an individual, but a potential node in a vast, living network of collective intelligence. "The Void Swarm is not our first potential extinction-level threat," Elena continued. "It's simply the most recent challenge we've been preparing to address." Massive data archives showed centuries of threat modeling, potential scenarios that ranged from ecological collapse to cosmic-level extinction events. Each scenario had multiple layers of potential responses, with contingency plans that branched into increasingly complex strategies. Zornak realized that human education was fundamentally different from any other known civilization. Children were taught to see the world as a complex, interconnected system. Problem-solving wasn't about finding single solutions, but about understanding the entire ecosystem of potential challenges. We don't just prepare for threats, the quantum AI projection explained. We prepare by becoming the solution. Underground research chambers demonstrated technologies that seemed to blur the lines between biology, technology, and pure information. Adaptive materials that could reconstruct themselves. Computational systems that could learn and evolve faster than any known artificial intelligence. Dr. Caroline's neural implants were struggling to process the sheer volume of information. "How long have you been preparing?" she asked. Elena's smile was both a welcome and a warning. "Longer than you can currently comprehend." The facility was more than a defensive installation. It was a testament to human potential, a living museum of continuous preparation, adaptation, and survival. Every surface, every system, every piece of information told the same story. Humanity was not waiting to be saved. They were preparing to save themselves, and potentially everyone else.